computer. All right, we're recording. So one of the things that we're going to start off with is we're going to do a little bit of the win-win agreement, and we're going to focus on the chapter on desire. The chapter on desire is the most important chapter because it's the chapter that reveals the Napoleon Hill secret that he talks about in the book. And that secret is not disputable. It's not we become what we think about. It's nothing that you said, because he gave us clues, and the clues are that this is the same secret that Andrew Carnegie used to build a fortune. And there's only one secret that talks about what Andrew Carnegie did to create his fortune. So let's go to the next one. All right, so this is a quote from Paul Meyer that I would like you to write down, because you're going to ask yourself this question. And the question is, if I'm not making the progress I would like to make, and I'm capable of making, it's simply because my goals are not clearly defined. Now, goal setting is the strongest human force for motivation, period, end of story. There is nothing else that will help you get your life in shape or get your life for what you want other than goal setting. But there is a process, and most people don't understand it. And along with that process, there is certain things that you must do. It isn't just merely deciding on what you want. That's part of it, but you also must put a deadline on it. You must create a plan. Because without a plan, if you're sitting there with the law of attraction nonsense saying, oh, I want a Mercedes, I want a Mercedes, I want a Mercedes, you're not going to have a Mercedes. You must create a plan to achieve it. And any plan requires that four-letter word that most people in this country hate, W-O-R-K.
Work.
There's no way around it. You must work. And you must be willing to sacrifice, because there is a price to pay. And if you're not willing to pay that price, then you need to change the goal. So are you making the progress? When you look at yourself today, are you where you feel you should be in terms of financially, spiritually, socially, your family and relationships, your health and fitness, your mental, your education, your knowledge level? Where are you in each of those areas? And can you say that you're at a 10? And if you feel you're at a 10, then you got to go back and look at yourself, because how are you defining a 10? You see, if you ask somebody who's a multimillionaire, if they're a 10 financially, odds are they're going to say no, because their goal is probably going to be a billionaire. Like when they asked J. Paul Getty, who was at one point in time the richest man in the world, they said, Mr. Getty, you're the richest man in the world. How much is enough? He said, just a little bit more. Our grasp must always exceed our reach. And that's called inspirational dissatisfaction. We have to be content, not content, but we have to be happy with where we are in life, but we must be dissatisfied. Because the moment we become satisfied, we become complacent. The difference between Eastern philosophies and Western philosophies is Eastern philosophies believe that the way to happiness is by wanting nothing. Western philosophy is that in order to be happy, you must have something. Now, happiness is not a state that lives on its own. You can't say to yourself, I am happy, I am happy. Happiness comes from something. It's a derivative state. You can't say, I am happy. In order for you to be happy, you have to reference it to something. I'm happy because my kids love me. I'm happy because I'm doing well at my job. I'm happy because. So you can't create a state of just happiness. That doesn't exist. Happiness has to have a reference. It's attached to something. So what you're going to discover is how to achieve more and have more. But what we focus on is having a balanced life. Because it's great to be super wealthy, but if it costs you your family, your health, and perhaps other areas, then that's not true success. You know, and everybody's definition of success is different. Rockefeller's definition of success was to be the wealthiest man in the world, but Mother Teresa's definition of wealth had nothing to do of success had nothing to do with money. You know, your goal may be simply to be the best father or mother, and that is endemic to you. And if that's what how you're going to evaluate your success, then that's what you need to focus on. However, we do have a definition for success. And that definition is kind of part of what Earl Nightingale said and what Paul Meyer added to it. And that is, success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile, predetermined personal goal. You see, all goals, in order to motivate you, must be personal. If you have a goal to build the largest company in the tech world, that's great, but that's not going to motivate you. At the end of the day, it's what building that giant tech company is going to allow you to do. Maybe it might allow you to change people's lives, to transform their lives by giving them technology that makes things easier for them. Or perhaps your motivation is that you want to work harder because you want to save money for a trust fund for your grandchildren. Or maybe you want to work harder just to be able to take your wife on that dream honeymoon, second honeymoon to Hawaii and the Maldives and Bora Bora. Whatever it is, that's what's going to motivate you. And so we have to understand that where we are now is a result of our thoughts, our attitudes. All thought is a mental attitude. All attitudes are a habit of thought. Physical thought, physical habits, throwing a baseball, and those we create, but we also have mental habits. And mental habits are the ones that basically run our lives, because they become so quick and habitual that we react instantly without even thinking about it. Kind of like when you get in a car and push the button to start the car, and before you know it, you're driving away. When you first started driving that car, that wasn't the case. You check your mirror, check the radio, check this, check that. It took you 15 minutes just to get the damn thing going. Now today you can drive, not think, you can text, you can call on the phone, you can kill yourself and all that good stuff. So today's the chapter on desire, and we really are going to condense the chapter down to what it's really about. So Napoleon Hill said that there is nothing that belief plus a burning desire cannot make real. And a burning desire to win is essential for success. The problem that most people have is that they believe that wanting is wrong. And so they say, you know, I'd love to have that Ferrari 911 Cabrera convertible, but it's $120,000. And I could take that $120,000 and invest it in the stock market. And I could take that $120,000 and pay off debt. And I could do this and do this. But at the end of the spectrum, the question that you need to ask yourself is, having that $120,000 Ferrari going to get you to work harder? Is it going to motivate you? Because there's nobody here that's going to get motivated for paying off debt. Okay? It doesn't. And if it worked, then everybody would be out of debt. But this is the most indebted nation in the world. So we have to understand that wanting is not wrong as long as you're using that wanting to drive you. And even if you set a goal to have a Ferrari and that caused you to set a goal to make $300,000 that year and to work 6 days a week and to be really efficient and productive and still take time for family and health, when the time comes to buy the Ferrari, you don't have to buy it. That's up to you. But if visualizing yourself driving that Ferrari down to the beach with your wind blowing in your hair, whatever few strands us men have left, if that's going to motivate you to get up and pay the price, then that's what you need to focus on. Now, for some of you, it might be a tennis bracelet. It might be a vacation. It might be putting in a new room in your home. It might mean sending your kids to a private school. Whatever that is, that's going to motivate you is what you need to focus on, because that's what's going to drive you. And how do you build desire? Does anybody know how to build desire?
Auto-suggestion?
Auto-suggestion is the tool, but it's not the way you build desire. Let me give you an example. If you were sitting in a restaurant, and Jay, do you enjoy steak?
Sure.
Okay. So if you were sitting at Ruth Chris, and as you're waiting for the steak that you ordered, out comes this other steak sizzling, and you can hear it sizzling, and you can smell that steak, and you're all of a sudden you're hungry as heck, and all of a sudden you get a whiff of it. What happens to you when you get a whiff of that steak?
It sets off something inside you.
You start salivating, don't you?
Yeah.
You start you're picturing in your mind's eye eating that steak. Well, that's the same thing that we must do to build desire. See, the problem is we've got to get over the fact that desiring something is wrong. And we have to allow ourselves to see that picture. See, auto-suggestion is powerful, but let me give you an example of the limitations of words. See, the brain uses images rather than words. When you're teaching a child the word cat, what do? You hold a picture of a cat, and on the other side is the word. Or you point to the cat and you say cat. You don't say C-A-T. The child does not see C-A-T. It sees a picture of the cat and then utters the word cat with it. Mommy. What the heck is a mommy? Mommy is, you point to yourself, mommy. Daddy. Dad. But you point, and then through repetition, they learn it. Now, if you had an affirmation that says, I am a billionaire, are you a billionaire now, Jay?
Not yet.
Okay, good answer. Now, if you said every day, I am a billionaire, what would your subconscious mind do initially?
First, it tries to put you down.
Would it accept it? No, it would say, you're not a billionaire. And then it would play back for you all the things and all the reasons why you're not a billionaire. You're not a billionaire because you have too much debt. You're not a billionaire because you don't make enough money. You're not a billionaire because of this, and this. Now, eventually, through repetition, we drown out that negative voice, right? That's what auto-suggestion is all about. However, if I said to you right now, Jay, close your eyes, and I'd like you to picture yourself as a billionaire. And if you were a billionaire, what kind of house would you live in? Where would those houses be? What kind of car would you drive? What kind of charities would you be giving money to? What would your lifestyle be like? You can picture that, can't you?
Right. Yes.
Now, is your brain saying no, that you're not a billionaire, don't picture that? No, it accepts it.
No, it accepts it.
So visualization is accepted. Now, how do we power up or 10x visualization? Well, that's really simple. Pictures, right? What did Confucius say? Or Mao Zedong or whoever it was?
Picture is worth 1,000 words.
1,000 words. So what you must do is you must develop a visualization board. And you look at that picture, and then for a second, you close your eyes and you see yourself, and you ask yourself, where is the first place I'm going to drive this car? Who's going to be with me? Where am I going to go? So for me, it's I'm going to take a trip down to South Beach, Miami. I'm going to have a beautiful girlfriend by my side, and I'm going to just enjoy the trip all the way down, cruising at 100 miles an hour. So that's the picturization, right? Is it going to be a crappy day? No, it's going to be a perfect day. 72 degrees, sun's out, no clouds. Perfect Florida weather in the winter, of course, not in the summer. So we must picture, and we must build that desire through the process of picturization. Now, here's the thing. Well, this is the secret is already, we're going to discuss that. Napoleon Hill says that the particular thing about the secret is those who once acquired and use it find themselves literally swept onto success with but very little effort, and they never again submit to success, to failure. So let me just go back a little bit forward here. So, okay. So all human motivation is about benefits to be gained and losses to be avoided. That's the whole model, the carrot and the stick. So in order to motivate ourselves, we must understand what those things are. And here's what happens. When you set the goal, you're going to have actions that you need to take. That's part of the plan. If you don't take those actions, it's because of one or two reasons. When you procrastinate on something, it's because of one or two reasons. Number one, it's because the benefits and the losses to be avoided are not big enough. So if for me to be successful, I have to work 6 days a week, 12-hour days. And the reward for that is that I make $50,000. That's not going to be enough to motivate. Right? So it's like the donkey. In order to get if you want to get the donkey to carry that load, you can try hitting it with a stick, and that'll take you so far. Or you can put a carrot in front of the donkey, and the donkey will strive to get that carrot. However, you have a couple of things. The donkey must be hungry, the carrot must be big enough, and the carrot must be close enough. Because what happens if I put the carrot 3 feet away from its nose?
He's not going to pay attention to it.
Right. That's what's called long-range goals. When you set a goal for 5 years from now and you don't break it down to a shorter-term goal, it has no motivational power. It's a carrot that's 5 feet away. So you got to bring the carrot closer to where you can see it and smell it and almost taste it. And you have to do that with yourself. And that's the benefits to be gained. The losses to be avoided are, for example, if you set a goal to be a billionaire, what would be some of the losses that you could avoid by becoming a billionaire? Can you think of any?
Well, frustration and not being able to do the things that you want or have the things you want.
Right.
Being in debt.
You might have greater confidence by becoming a billionaire. You'd have more opportunities. You'd have power to control things. Because what is money? Money is just leverage. That's all it is. Money, if I have enough money, I can hire you to do what I don't want to do. That's it. And therefore, money gives me that time because of the leverage. The second thing is if the benefits aren't big enough, if the rewards aren't big enough, we're not going to take the action. So it's like, you tell your wife, I'm going to clean out the garage on Saturday. And she's all excited. And then you open up the garage door and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, it's going to take all friggin' day. What's the reward? You make your wife happy. So you do an immediate evaluation, right? You go to the scale, making her happy versus spending 5 hours in the garage, sweeping, vacuuming, hanging shit up. And if your wife is important to you, you'll get it done. And if you feel that you can finagle her, you may not get it done. Now, the second thing is that stops us is we haven't broken down the action steps into small bite-sized pieces. How many people have a goal here with a deadline and have an action plan to achieve it? Anybody? Lisa, you do? Okay. So if the actions are, for example, let's say you have a goal of running a 5K. If the actions are to run 5 hours tomorrow, is that bite-sized pieces?
No.
No, too big. So we have to break it down into bite-sized pieces, maybe something that we can get done in 15 or 20 minutes. Because what we all tend to do is we all tend to make a to-do list. And when we do, it's a to-do list that's good for the month. Because we just pack on everything there. And consequently, we get very little of it done. So if you find yourself lacking motivation, it's usually because the rewards aren't big enough. So what can we do so when we're looking at the goal, we have to say to ourselves, if the reward isn't worth it, what do we do?
Increase it.
Gotta find a motivator that's going to get you to take action. Or number two, it's not a burning desire.
Well, you can't build a burning desire. The rewards are what's going to stimulate your desire. So if the rewards aren't big enough, then it's not a goal because you're never going to take action. So what you can do, and this is what I've done before, is you can increase the benefits. I set a goal back when I was 22 years old to make $100,000 by the time I was 25. And part of it was that I would go to the company conference, I'd get promoted to a sales manager. I would buy myself a new car, a new suit, new shoes, new briefcase, and that I would put aside $25,000 to buy a new home. Now, on top of that, greater self-confidence, recognition, prestige, there was a lot of other internal benefits, but I added to it. So what did I do every other weekend? I went down to the car dealer and I would test drive that car, or I'd go sit in it and just smell the car. Right? That's the state. When I had a custom made home built, I went to the construction site every Sunday, myself, the wife, and the kids. We would spend the entire day in that community and we would go food shopping there, except perishables. We would go eat dinner there. We would spend the entire day there as if we already were living there, even though the house was 6 months away from being completed. But what did that allow me to do? It allowed me to see myself already in possession of the money, okay? So the win-win agreement basically starts out with the top part where you write down 5 things that are challenges for you right now. And what you want to do is you want to have 3 of them to be business challenges. So it could be you're not saving enough money, you have too much debt, you need to earn more money. Now, in the past, when I did the DMPS Masterclass, which is coming up, and DMPS stands for Definite Main Purpose Statement, which is what Napoleon Hill talks about, that we must create and use auto-suggestion with. Alan had convinced me to tell people to set a goal to double their income. Does anybody know what if you're making $100,000 and I have you set a goal to make $200,000 in 1 year, what's the problem with that? Number one.
Where are you going to get that other 100,000 from if your job is making this?
You're not going to believe it, right? You're not going to believe it because you're like, I just busted my tail to make 100 grand. How am I going to friggin' double it? Right? So if you don't believe it, will you achieve it?
No,
No.
you have to believe it to achieve it.
Right. And even if we use repetition and we say every day, I am so happy and grateful now that I'm receiving over $200,000 in monthly income from my multiple businesses and in passive income streams. Is that going to take effect like that? No, it's going to take time. It may take 2 years before that repetition begins to impact your thinking. So a more realistic goal, and by realistic, we're talking about just the deadline, would be to have a 20% increase. So if I increase my income by 20% each year, which is the goal that Jack Welch stated for General Electric, at 20%, if we take 20 and divide it by 72, that tells us that a 20% return, money doubles every 3 years. So if I set a goal to make 100,000 and I increase it every year by 20%, that means 3 years from now, it's worth how much? Double. So now 3 years, I'm making 200,000. 3 years later, I'm making how much? 400,000. And then by the 10th year, I'm making somewhere close to $500,000 or just over $500,000 a year. Not too bad, a 20% increase. And is that doable? More than likely. It's going to require you to get focused and get working, obviously. And you may have to examine at what kind of work you do. Because let's face it, if you're working at Walmart for $15 an hour, it's going to be near impossible to ever accumulate any real wealth. Does anybody know what is the #1 highest paying profession?
Dentist?
Or sales.
Sales.
Sales. So if you're going to go into sales, what kind of sales? Real estate? Financial services? And the third one, somebody told me, is solar. I don't know. But I know that I was in financial services and did very well with it. And I know I have people that have been in the mastermind group that were back in 2015, 2016, they were making $300,000 a year, like nothing. One gal was making 1.2 million in real estate sales. You know, does it take work? Yeah. Is it worth it? Depends on what you want out of it. You know? So you have to look at what you're doing, and you have to change who you are. If you have an attitude that you don't like talking to people, well, then you better get good at computer programming, because that's the only other profession that might pay you well. Because being a plumber ain't going to pay you the kind of money that you need to make if your goal is to be a billionaire, although they get paid very well. So 5 goals. The first are 5 challenges. That's kind of like a little brainstorming session. And then we're going to write the next 5 goals. We're going to take those 5 and we're going to put them in priority order. So, and then we're going to write them in language that is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and tangible. Specific. So if my goal is to make more money this year, is that specific?
It's not specific.
Not specific. So how would I phrase that to make it specific?
Exact
You have
amount
to
of
say
money.
how much you'll make.
So give me an example.
$100,000.
I'm not
For
taking a
example.
pay. I'm not taking a pay cut. Stop. Keep higher.
Well, I'm just giving an example.
$500,000,
I'm just messing with you.
$500,000 by the end of the year.
Okay, I will have in my possession 1 million. I will receive $1 million by December 31st, 2021. That would be a specific goal. Is it measurable?
Yes.
Yeah, I can measure that, right? I can put a ruler to it. Is it achievable?
It
Achievable has to do with what? Write down achievable and then cross it out and write the word belief. Achievable has to do whether I can believe it or not. Because if I can't believe it, I can't achieve it. So if my goal is to make $1 million in income this year, I have to ask myself, is this something that I can do? Do I believe I can do? What's realistic? Realistic has to do with the deadline. So maybe the goal of making $1 million in 1 year is not realistic, but maybe it might be realistic if it's a 3-year goal, that within 3 years, I'll be earning $1 million per year. So that would change it. So realistic has to do with the deadline.
So does that have to do with your income? Like I know guys that are making $1 million a month right now. So is that with the industry you're in that it's realistic or not realistic?
Well, if you're making $1 million a month, then you wouldn't be setting a goal to make $1 million a year.
Sure, but I'm with that.
Yeah.
With your goal of saying now to the end of the year $1 million, is it realistic or not? Is that dependent on how much money you're earning
Of course,
monthly
yeah.
in your industry?
Yeah, because in order, the first test is what? Is it achievable? If I'm making $300,000 a year, to use a number, I know that that's achievable. I believe that I can do 300,000. So now, if I set a goal to make 350,000, I know that's a little bit of stretch, but I can believe it. But if I say, okay, I want to go from 300,000 to $1 million, that may not be believable. Now, if I have a buddy who says, listen, I did this, this, and this, and I'm making $1 million a month, now I can then become aware of what they did differently and I can model their behavior, right? Because the fastest way to create wealth or to change behaviors is by finding somebody that's getting the results you want and then do exactly what they're doing. So if you have people that are making $1 million a month, you want to sit down with them and you want to find out how they're doing it. For example, a buddy of mine just left the automotive industry and he was making about $1.50 a year, 150,000. Right now, he just broke $1 million for the year, this year. Right? Now, where did he go? He went into financial services. How did he do that? he went to a company that allows him to recruit people, but pays huge compensation. Vested renewals from day one, and he's building a nationwide organization. And he's only been in it since 2019.
What you need is to find a leader that is documented and doing what you want to do right now, and it's duplicatable.
Yeah. If somebody else is doing it, then you can do it. All you have to do is look at their habits and their work ethic. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to achieve anything if you're not willing to work. So realistic has to do with a deadline. So if your goal is to make $1 million a month, and right now you're making 100,000 a month, that's not going to be achievable more than likely unless you've made some distinctions. Again, if you have an invention you've been working on that is going to be released within the next 30 days, then that would be achievable. But if you're just plugging away every day and you're making your 100K a month, and all of a sudden you figure you want to make $1 million a month, if nothing changes, then how are you going to do that is the question you have to ask yourself. Tangible means that you must be able to touch it, smell it, and all those good things. So the goal must be tangible. So if I set a goal to become a great father, is that a tangible goal?
No.
No. It's an intangible. So how do I make an intangible goal tangible? I want to be a great mother. What do? I have to define what makes, in my subjective opinion, what makes a great father. So for me, I defined that years ago as a great father as someone who spends 8 hours of quality one-on-one time doing the things that their son enjoys doing. And can I measure that?
You can.
Yeah, 8 hours, right? I can measure that. Is it specific?
Yes, it is.
Is it achievable? That's based on my belief system. Is it realistic?
Yes.
Yeah, it's based on a deadline, right? I just have to work 2 hours a week to do it. And now it became tangible. What's the tangible part? 8 hours a week. That's the tangible part. So this is really critical that you understand how to make a goal specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and tangible. So Edwin Barnes found the secret, and the secret was 6 steps. And when Napoleon Hill spent a great deal of time with Mr. Edison. And when he got there, that's when Mr. Barnes had just taken on the position of being a business partner with Edison. And he sold the dictaphone. And on each of the dictaphones they sold, they had an emblem on it that said, made by Edison, sold by Barnes. And before he was age 30, he was a multi-millionaire. In fact, because he never owned much clothing, Mr. Hill told the story that Mr. Barnes owned 1 suit for every day of the week. He had 30 suits. And when Mr. Hill asked him to borrow one, he said, no, you can't have it. He says, but you have 30 of them. You're not going to miss one for today. He says, you don't understand. I went so long without clothing that I had to wear the same thing every day for 5 years that now I promised myself that once I made it, I would never wear the same thing twice. 30 suits, 30 ties, 30 shirts, 30 belts, 30 everything. Every day he had what he was wearing that day, he had not worn that month. Interesting, right? So the 6 steps by Mr. Hill. Fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. Okay, what step is that from the previous SMART goal? The first one, right? Specific. Be definite enough. Number 2, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. There's no such reality as something for nothing. Okay. Number 3, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money or goal that you desire. 4, and this is the one where everybody drops the ball. You must create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you're ready or not, to put this plan into action. 5, now comes the auto suggestion. You must write out a concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire, name the time limits for its acquisition, state what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly the plan through which he intends to accumulate. So who here has a thorough plan for achieving their financial goal for this year? Anybody?
I am close.
You're close?
I have to fine tune my plan.
Okay. So what are the obstacles that are stopping you from achieving your goal?
What is stopping me?
What are the obstacles that are stopping you from achieving your goal?
My full-time job.
Okay. And what is the solution?
I'm sorry.
What is the solution?
What is the solution? To do better in my business so I can get rid of this job?
Okay. My buddy Eric Schmidt worked in the automotive business. He was working 50 hours a week. And to make the transition to the financial services, he worked another 35 hours a week selling the insurance products and financial services. And he did that for 6 months. That year, he made $300,000. And he was tired as a dog. See, he asked himself the question, if this is what I want, why don't I already have it?
How many hours did he work a week?
He's working 90 something hours a week.
I'm sorry. 100,
90 something hours a week.
I only work 60.
You're a slacker like I am. So the thing is, we can all find reasons not to do it, but you have to ask yourself, if this is what I really want, why don't I have it already? And so the reason for you might be that I have a full-time job that requires me to work 60 hours a week.
I honestly think I have not grown into the person that I was meant to be. It's that journey that we have to endure on the way. That's what makes us grow. So I am not ready.
Okay. If my goal is to make, let's say $500,000 this year for one of my businesses, and my average commission per deal is $2,000, that means I have to sell how many of those courses at $2,000 profit to make $500,000? 250, correct? Do I need to grow into the 250, or do I need to get on the phone, make appointments, and make presentations? I don't have to grow into it. I got to do the work.
If you are not grown into that person that can handle that, you are not going to sustain that.
You will sustain it if you do one thing. That is identify what are the benefits to be gained and the losses to be avoided. So what's in it for you? That's what's going to sustain you, because it's the scale. If the rewards, I used to call it the bullshit scale. If you're paying me this much money and the bullshit is up here, I'm quitting, right? If the money's up here, then I'll put up with the bullshit, right? It's always relative. If there's this much bullshit and I'm making this kind of money, I'm going to look for something else. If the bullshit and the money are the same, I'll tolerate it. But if the money's here and the bullshit's here, I'm happy, right? So in life, it's all about what are the benefits. For him, the benefits were, for Eric, the benefits were that he could get out of a business where he sacrificed his time, his sanity, his kids, his family, because he was required to work 60 hours a week. And holidays, the automotive industry, you're working 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, New Year's Eve, you're going in. So that was the price he wanted to get rid of. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life working to make the owners rich. And he saw this as his opportunity. And that's why he acted on it. And that's why he worked 30 hours a week, because he needed to get to a point where the money he was making from the side gig was equal to what he was making from his full-time gig. And as soon as it got close, he cut loose on the automotive business. But that's a decision that we all have to make. We don't have to grow into it, as it were. We have to decide what we want, and then we have to be willing to pay the price. Now, you may say grow into it, meaning that you have to grow into the belief that you can do it, the skills that you might need, or whatever. But the thing is that when you take out your plan of action form and you break down your goal by itemizing what the goal is and writing it down specifically, and then itemizing all the benefits and then looking at all the obstacles that you have to overcome, and then coming up with solutions. What was his solution? It was real simple. Work. There was no way around it. There was no way for him to quit his job with a mortgage and kids and, you know, getting ready to go to college and all that, and still earn the money that he needed to make. So he knew he had to pay the price somewhere, and he did it for about 6 months. So that's part of it, but few people are willing to pay that price, because what? The benefits aren't big enough, or they don't identify with the benefits. They're still in the denial process. And by denial, I mean that they don't believe they're worthy of the benefits. And then once you identify what it is, then you have to write out your action steps. What do I need to do tomorrow? When I set a goal to have $1 million by the time I was 30, the first thing I wrote down is open up a savings account and start putting aside 10% of my income every week. That's a small step. Did it get me there? No, but it got me making progress. The next thing was, I don't know enough about investing. So I took the $5,000 that I had saved and I put it into public service electric and gas stock, which is a utility that paid good dividends. And I let it sit there. And I had a financial advisor that came along with that. Then I read a book by William Nickerson, How I Turned $1,000 into $1 Million through real estate investing. And I realized that one way to become wealthy is to buy homes, fix them up, and then rent them out. But see, it was a process. It wasn't that I immediately had the plan. The plan developed as I took each step. It's like if you wanted to climb a mountain, you don't immediately go to the summit, right? You climb, and then when you get to the top of that summit, what can you see when you're sitting on top of that mountain? You can see the other mountains that are higher. And so now you say, ooh, I want to climb that mountain. Now you go climb that mountain. And then when you summit that one, what do? Now you can see the next one and the next one. You don't start out running a marathon by one day saying, I'm going to run a marathon, unless you've already been training. But for most people, you start out by first, running around the block. And then once you make it around the block, you might be able to get to where you run 1 mile. Then you might be able to run 5 miles. Then you might be able to run a 5K, then a 10K, and a 15K, and then a 25, 26K, 26 miles, whatever it is in the case. But it doesn't go from here to there. It's progressive realization. Remember, success is the progressive realization of a predetermined, worthwhile personal goal. Now, because of that definition, if that is the definition of success, and I marry somebody who has money, by that definition, am I successful?
No, you're not.
Possibly not, right? Unless I had set a goal to marry somebody who was wealthy, right? Now,
If that
if
was
I
the
hit-
goal, then yes.
If I hit the lottery, is that successive, progressive realization of a worthwhile predetermined goal? No,
No.
no. So therefore, by that definition, I'm not successful. But through that definition, when am I successful? I'm successful the moment that I determine a goal. The moment I set a goal and put a deadline on it and begin going through the process, that's when I'm successful. You see, the reason that we write it down is because it's now in black and white, it's concrete. So now it's not like when you say, well, yeah, I'm going to run the marathon. Tomorrow morning, you watch the TV and you might want to go scuba diving. Anybody have kids that wanted to take up karate, and then 3 weeks later they wanted to do baseball, and then three months later they wanted to do soccer, and 3 months later they wanted to go take ballet classes, right? That's us too. We never focus. Napoleon Hill called that drifters. People that never stick to anything. The process of writing down your goals and creating a plan of action with deadlines is what gets you to start taking the action. So this is, this is a goal that I set yesterday, and today I accomplished 3 major things as a result of having written it down. And the deadlines were 9, 10, so I'm a day ahead. Now, Does this mean that because I did this, I'm going to always take the action? No. Sometimes I'll procrastinate. Sometimes I have to remind myself of why I'm doing it. And then I must always have affirmations to go with it, right? I must affirm what I want. Because affirmation does what? What is the purpose of auto-suggestion or affirmation? Anybody know?
To get yourself to believe it.
Yeah, affirmation, build belief.
It's about the subconscious belief.
Yeah.
Not the conscious mind belief.
Yeah. It's like we all consciously know what to do. The problem is we don't do it. And the reason we don't do it is because we're not committed to it. And then the final step is that we have no accountability. As Paul Meyer used to say, the problem with goals is that they don't ring. Right? Remember when we used to have those things that ring phone? When you had a phone and there was no caller ID and it rang in your house, what did you do?
You
Did
picked
you
it
let it
up.
go to voicemail when you didn't have it? No. You picked it up and you said hello. And if you were in the middle of dinner and the phone rang, what did you do? You answered the phone. Why? Because you want to know who was calling. It might be important, right? Well, goals don't ring. That's why everybody waits till they're almost 50 years old before they start planning their retirement. That's why we have a problem in this country. Less than half of the population is adequately prepared for retirement. The rest of them are going to live on what? Social Security? And how many people do you think are going to be working at 67, 68, 69, and 70? Not because they chose to, but because they have to.
A lot.
A lot. And if you want to see that, just look at every single bus driver in your town or go to some of the fast food joints during the day, and you'll see a lot of people who we could classify as senior citizens working there for 10, 15 bucks an hour to supplement their Social Security and their small pensions or 401ks or whatever they had back then. So if you're 50 years old and you're not sitting on at least $1 million of cash right now, you better get serious. Because even $1 million ain't enough. At 5% interest, that's only $50,000 a year. You need really $5 million to have a comfortable lifestyle, to be able to enjoy your life. And to be able to leave something for your heirs. So somebody said to me, somebody once complained that all I did in my mastermind group was talk about money. So my question to him was, how much do you have? Because the people that complain the most about money are not the ones that have it. Did you ever hear Bezos or Musk or any of those guys complain about money?
Never.
The people who complain about relationships are the ones that have shitty relationships. People that complain about health are the ones that have shitty health. Somebody who is in great health does not complain about their health. Person who has money never complains about their money. So whatever is missing in your life, you need to get serious and take this as a wake-up call and ask yourself, why don't I already, if having $1 million saved is important to me, why don't I already have it? What are the circumstances? What are the obstacles that are stopping you from having that money? And more than likely, it's your habits. You may not have a saving habit. If you don't set aside 20 or 30% of your income, gross income every month, then you really aren't saving. And if the answer is, well, I don't make enough money, that's what in my nomenclature. You know what that is? It's an obstacle. What's the solution? I can't save money. I don't make enough. What's the solution?
Make more.
Yeah. It might mean going to your boss, asking him for a raise. It might mean becoming an Uber driver, an Uber Eats. It might mean doing some online gigs. It might mean taking a weekend job. It might be cutting back on expenses. But now you have a plan. And it may not be a perfect plan, but it's a plan. And it'll bring you closer than anything else. And then what's going to happen along the way once you ink it, as I call it, once you ink the plan, what's going to happen? Is there's going to be obstacles and adversity, shit's going to come up. So what do? Do we quit? No, we don't quit on the goal. We change the plan. If my goal is to drive from New Jersey to Miami, Florida, and I'm getting there, I'm GPSing it, and all of a sudden GPS says detour. What do? I turn around and go back to New Jersey because there's a detour? No. What do?
You follow the detour.
I go around it, over it, through it, above it, whatever I need to do. But I get back on, I find a way to get back on track to achieve the goal. But what do most of us do? Oh, it wasn't meant to be. Oh, I got to quit. I can't do this. 90% of all failure comes from quitting. So if you don't want to fail, don't quit. Every adversity has W. Clement Stone said it this way. He said, in every adversity, there's a seed of an equivalent or the greater benefit if we look for it with PMA, a positive mental attitude. So when we have adversity, we have to look at it with a positive mental attitude. When we come up with an adversity, that just means we have an opportunity to put on our creative hat and take out our pen and start coming up with solutions, not to quit. The problem is most people spend too much time quitting and not enough looking for solutions. So if the plan isn't working, if there's a detour, I just figure out the way around it. So now I go to my mastermind people and I ask other people that have done it before, hey, what did you do in this circumstance? And I might get one or two ideas that I can implement, and I drill myself for ideas. I might read books about it, but I don't entertain the idea of putting on the goal. Because the moment I entertain the idea of putting on the goal, I'm done. So if you don't have it as an affirmation, you should write it down. In every adversity, there is a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit if I look for it with a positive mental attitude. Okay? How many people lost their jobs because of the pandemic? Quite a few. Can anybody tell me one benefit that has become obvious in terms of jobs that came about as a result of the pandemic?
People realize you can work from home and do things that you didn't think you could do.
Right. What's been happening to wages?
Plus having wages.
Yeah, what happened to people that were waitresses and waiters in restaurants? They didn't go back to work.
Yeah, they got slammed.
That's why when you go to restaurants now, it's hard to get service because a lot of those people, what they do during that paid vacation, they went back to school, they took courses online, mostly, and some of them just found better jobs.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the seed of an equivalent benefit, right? If it hadn't been for the pandemic, a lot of people wouldn't have done that. So we could sit there and cry, like a goddamn crybaby, or we can look for a benefit. We can look for something. We can cry about that we have too much debt. I had a guy years ago, my buddy had one of those adult carrier routes, the ones where they used to deliver the papers to the people's door, throw it out the window type of thing. He was making $2,000 a month. And he told my next door neighbor about it. And my next door neighbor says, oh man, I'll take that job. Because he had done it for 2 years, he was done. He didn't want to do it anymore. He accomplished what he wanted to. So he told the guy, okay, meet me at my house at 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and I'll show you the route. Well, he told me he sat there Sunday till about 5, the guy never showed up. So now he's an hour late because you have to start at a certain time. So he had to drag his butt around to get everything done. Well, the guy's wife came back over to his wife's house and said, oh, I'm so sorry. My husband overslept and, he wants to go out next Sunday. Will you take him out next Sunday? Well, my buddy told his wife, tell him no. And then she said, please help them out. They want the money. They want to pay off the debt. They want to be able to buy a house. So he said, okay, tell him to be at the house at 3 in the morning. Because this way, if he's not there by 4, I'm leaving. Well, sure enough, he was up early anyway. And sure enough, did the guy show up? No. So he went and delivered the rent, never offered it to the guy again. Here's a guy that said he wanted it. It would pay off his debt. They'd be able to have a better lifestyle for him, his wife, and his kids. He'd be able to, in about 2 or 5 years, he'd have 10 grand that he could, no, sorry, more than that. He'd have, in 2 years, he'd have 50 grand that he could use as a down payment. In 1 year, he'd have $25,000 or $24,000 before expenses to put down in his house, but he wasn't willing to pay the price. To him, sleeping an extra hour or 2 on a Sunday was more important than going out and changing his life. So there's the solution. How many, my buddy asked me one time to help him, so I went down to the depot. Do you know how many people I saw there that were Americans?
Very few.
Very few. Most of them were immigrants. I was astonished. I thought that for sure Americans would be there making that 2 grand a month or whatever it was to do it. No, Jamaicans, Haitians, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Orientals, the melting pot of America, but not one American. Why? Because they were too busy sleeping. And that was a 7-day-a-week job, so it was a bastard of a job, I'm sure. He did it 7 days. All right, so we must look for the benefit in everything. And what we know is because of autosuggestion, our brains become magnetized with the dominating thought. So when we break out our goals and we write them down and we review them daily, and what do we review? We review the action steps daily. Why? Because of autosuggestion. If I'm reviewing the action steps daily, then I'm not going to procrastinate. If I'm reviewing the benefits daily, I'm not going to procrastinate because it's top of mind. But if I take it, write it down, and then shove it in the drawer, nothing's ever going to happen. So our brains become magnetized with the dominant thoughts which hold our mind, and by means with which no man is familiar with, these magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life, which harmonize with the nature of our dominant thoughts. Paul Meyer said that we attract to ourselves that which we set out for ourselves. And there is no, you cannot attract anything which your thoughts repel. You cannot attract anything which your thought repels. It must first become mentally accomplished before it becomes physically accomplished. You must understand that principle. You must first see it in your mind's eye. As Napoleon Hill and Bob Proctor have said, if you can hold it in your mind, you will soon hold it in your hand. Everything that you look around, the house, the buildings, electricity, computers, was at one point a thought in somebody's head. And all they did is take action. And here it is today. We have this technology, right? 30 years ago, she told me that I'd sit here talking to 20 or 30 people by video camera on my little laptop. I would have laughed. 50 years ago, I would have said, you're insane. You know, who knew? But here it is. So what's going to be in the next 50 years? Who knows? But here's what we do know, is that these principles of success have not changed. Why? Because it's still the same human brain. But the key is to identify the goal and then put it down in black and white. And then to create a list of actions that you must take with deadlines. And that's what's going to make you take the action. When I know that my rewards are, lower body fat, help me build muscle, look younger, greater focus, blah, 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 blah. All these benefits are what drove me to take action today. So when I got up this morning at 4:30, the first thing I did is read this sheet of paper, along with the other 10 that I have. Somebody had a question? Okay, so let me do a quick Q&A, and then we'll talk about next week's meeting. Anybody have any questions? No questions on anything? Nobody said, hey, Bert, what's that form you keep holding up? Where can I get?
Hey,
Yeah.
Bert,
Yeah,
you hear me?
yep,
Can you see me?
yep.
It's Joe.
I see you, Jeff.
I got the statement we wrote out a couple years ago. Read it
Yep.
every day, every day. It's happening. It works.
It does work. Yep,
It works.
absolutely. Absolutely. Statement works, but you must also take the next step, which is to create the plan and then execute it. And the statement helps because it gives you the confidence and the belief to be able to take the action. So that's the final step. Anybody else have any other questions? So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to have a definite main purpose master class where we're going to do what I did with Joe, which is to help him create a definite main purpose statement. And the purpose of that is to use auto suggestion to create belief in yourself that you can accomplish it. If you already believe that you could accomplish your goal, it would be a goal accomplished. So,
Can I say something, Bert?
sure, absolutely.
I fought Bert back and forth. He coached me on this stuff. And I thought I knew what the heck I was doing. And I tell you what, it worked. He helped me with the stuff a couple years ago. Was it a couple years ago?
About a year or 2 years ago,
A year ago, 2 years ago?
yeah.
This stuff works. You got to read it. You got to take action. If you don't take action, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Joe's a super successful real estate owner and investor. He was already successful when he came to me, like a lot of people that come to me that haven't achieved success. So he already had, what I have found is that people who are, who my best students are? People who are already successful.
You know,
You know why?
The thing
Because
is that-
they're successful.
the thing is that I wanted to challenge you. I wasn't teachable. Yeah, I knew everything. I already knew everything because I've been studying this stuff for
I know.
14, 15 years, and Bert's not going to tell me who's, but I tell you what, anybody out there that's listening, I'm a student of Bert's and, he knows what he's talking about.
Joe has some really excellent, he's read the entire Law of Success, which I'm sure many of you have never even read it. And
The law of success is to me is the Bible. It's the
that's the
it's the
first book.
freaking Bible. It's
Law
the
of
freaking
Success
Bible,
is of the science, Think and Grow Rich was written later as a condensation.
Yes.
law. And Joe
One of-
read it and actually knew it, which is the interesting thing.
One of my goals this year is to read all the books that Hill wrote, and I'm almost there. I got a little sidetracked, but I've got them all now. They're in my back right here, and I've got them all. Every single thing that he wrote, and that's one of my goals this year. I hope to accomplish it by the end of the year, and but one of the things that I can say is you got to be coachable. You got to be, at first I fought Bert back and forth, but you got to listen sometimes. You got to shut up and listen. And I'm talking too much, I guess, but
No worries.
it is what it is. Bert helped me with a statement, and he actually did, and I practice it every morning, every night. It's all over my office. It's all over my business. It's in my car. It's in my briefcase. It's everywhere. It's in my mirror when I shave. I'm bald. When I shave, it's right there in front of me. Well, I'm not bald, but I have to.
Well, I get if you put in your statement that you're growing hair, it might show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't want it. I don't want hair. I don't want hair.
I hear you. So we're going to have a master class on the definite main purpose statement. Part of that is a template, which is basically a fill in the blanks to help people, the beginners, create their statement. And then by the end of the master class, we'll refine it down to where you have a statement of your goal. And typically you want to have on there 2 or 3 goals. It'll be one business goal, one personal goal, and then another goal in another area of life. And then the thing that we're going to do after that, for those of you that get involved, is to actually create a plan to achieve those goals. See, the thing that's stopping you right now is you don't have a plan. You may not have the belief, but the belief. If I have a plan and I start taking action on that plan, what happens to my belief as I take action? So there's two ways to create belief, right? One way is through repetition, right? What's the other way? By taking action. If I don't believe I can throw a baseball, I can sit here all day and say I can throw a baseball, I can throw a baseball. But if somebody takes me out to a ball field, puts a ball in my hand, and I start throwing a baseball, when am I going to make the fastest progress? Repeating
you
I can
continue
throw a
throwing
baseball or doing it. Yeah.
When you continue throwing it, repetition.
Repetition, same thing, but just the physical act is what gets me there. And that's the plan of action. The plan of action is the key to achieving a goal. And things that you're procrastinating on, when you sit down and have to fill out this form and decide when you're going to do it, you know, you'll be surprised that all of a sudden how you figure out how to get it done. And all those barriers, all those obstacles that were blocking you before, they're still there, but now you're like, I don't care. Like for me, I'm on a 5-year grind. Okay, that's my thing. I am willing to pay whatever price I personally have to pay over the next 5 years to get my goal accomplished. And I will allow no one nor anything to stop me. So when I'm meeting a new person in my life, a new woman in my life, if I believe that she is not in concert with my goal, what do I immediately know I have to do?
Break it off.
Find somebody else. I don't quit on the goal. I just find somebody else, right? Change the plan. Sometimes you're in a relationship and the person that you're with is not on board with your goals, right? What do you do then? Well, my answer to that is do no harm. If they don't help you if they are not encouraging you or helping you achieve your goal, that's okay. What they can't do is the opposite. Because if they begin criticizing you or they begin questioning you, what happens to your belief in yourself?
It falls apart.
Those parts you have to sit down with them and explain to them why you need their cooperation. And it's okay if they don't believe that you can do it. They just can't say it. But maybe if you believe in me a little bit, maybe it can happen. What do we got to lose? Right? So believe in me. What do you got to lose, right? You achieve your goal. Oh, geez. So we have the mastermind that I used to run has changed a great deal because now we focus more on measurable results. We still use the same tools, the visualization, affirmation, auto suggestion, and the mastermind, but now we plug in, and part of that is that we sit down and we spend about 2 hours identifying your goals, business and personal, and creating a plan of action to achieve it so that you know exactly what steps you have to take. And then on a weekly basis, we meet and we look at the action steps. So if the action steps is that I need to call my primary doctor today, or I need to find a primary doctor, that could be my goal for this week, to reach out to my doctor and schedule an appointment. Or my goal might be to do 5 hours of cardio and to do 3 strength training sessions, which are 2 of my goals. So now I say to you, hey, Dan, my commitment is I'm going to do 5 hours of cardio and 3 hours of strength training, right? That's my commitment, and you write it down. And now next week we get together and I have to report to you. Well, I only did 4 hours of cardio and I only did 2 strength training sessions. So Dan, being a good coach or facilitator, is going to say, what stopped you, Bert? Well, I let life get in the way. Okay, well, as a good facilitator or coach, I'm not going to accept that because that's a pretty lame ass excuse. When does life get in the way? Does anybody know?
And you let it.
When we let it. What's the solution to not letting life get in the way? What do doctors do to make sure that you show up to your appointments? They make an appointment, right? So if you don't want life to get in the way, block out the time to do it. So if I'm going to work out, I don't say I'll do it when I have time. I get up And at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing my 1 hour cardio. And if it's my strength training day, I'm doing my 1 hour strength training. And then if it's a really nice day, the workout area is right by the pool. So I'll go right, bring my towel with me and dip right into the pool and then go home and take a shower. So the pool is my reward. And they also have this really great Starbucks coffee there for free. So I get to have a cup of Starbucks. So that's gotten me to go there 5 days a week. And and like today with crappy weather, so I didn't dip in the pool. But, you know, Florida, most days are nice, so I can dip in the pool most days. So those are my benefits. A cup of coffee, good cup of coffee for free. I love that. Free is a good word. And a dip in the pool. And then occasionally, there'll be one of the pretty residents. And then I get eye candy. That's the best thing going, right? That's what gets guys to go to the gym. So I'm a guy, so that works for me. Sometimes I bring the eye candy with me. Anyway. All right, so what I'd like you all to do is go to this page. And if you have not gotten the template for the definite main purpose statement, if you go to this page, there's a sales letter that explains the definite main purpose statement. And then you can get the entire goal setting package. I think it's for 19 bucks. And that will give you access to the definite main purpose statement masterclass, which is going to take about an hour and a half. I don't know for certain if it's going to be next week or the week after that, but I'll send out an email blast on it for those of you that sign up. And then what we're going to do is it's going to be a hands-on class. You're going to have a little bit of pre-work, which is basically in identifying your goals, which is what the win-win is all about. And then we're going to write a definite main purpose statement in the correct verbiage, okay, which is one of the things that Joe Joe wanted to use the old verbiage from Napoleon Hill. I will earn $1 million instead of I have $1 million. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about, the verbiage, and then we're going to incorporate parts of our plan in that, and then you'll begin to work on creating the plan of action, which is really the most important thing we can do. Because if you walk away from that session with a plan of action for reaching your goal, whatever that goal might be, and then all you have to do is do what you would do is when you have a map, you just follow the map. And then each week you'll be asked, if you get involved at the next level, what did you accomplish? And you're going to be basically held accountable for 14 weeks. Now, what changed is when you go to a seminar, here's the difference, right? So the way we can change ourselves is two ways: impact and repetition, right? That's the only way we can change. We have to have an impact. An impact would be a life-threatening event that forces us to re-examine our lives, right? That's impact. So when we go to a seminar, even the great Tony Robbins, and that seminar for 3 or 4 days, that's an impact. But what's the problem with that? Well, here's the problem. If I said to you to take a 10-inch nail and to drive it through a 5-inch piece of wood with one shot at the hammer, how many people think they could drive that nail through that piece of wood with one stroke, with one lick, as my buddy used to call it?
No.
Very few, right? Because you need to be dead on accurate, and you need to have enough strength to be able to drive it completely through, right? So impact, that's impact. So now let's take that same example of a 10-inch nail, and I give it to a 12-year-old kid. But I tell the kid to put the nail in the wood, I give him a hammer, and I said, hit the nail as many times as you need to drive it through the wood. Will that child be able to do it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between repetition and impact. See, with repetition, a child can do it. So when you have a program that just gives you impact, there's no behavior change. Because it takes what, 21 days to create a new habit? So if every week you're focusing on your goal, and every week you're taking action on that goal, and if you're not taking action, you're being asked what stopped you, and then we brainstorm solutions to make sure that doesn't happen again, and you're doing that over a 14-week period, do you think you'll make more progress than what you're doing now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the answer. You see, the problem is that most of us are doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And what's going to change our lives is knowing specifically what we want to accomplish, having a detailed action plan with bite-sized pieces that we take action on a weekly basis. And somebody's there saying, hey, did you do it or didn't you do it? Without the beat up, because the beat up negative affirmation doesn't work. Right? There's a book that all you should look up, and it's called The Care and Feeding of Dolphins. And so years ago, they tried to train dolphins. And what they found is that dolphins and other aquatic animals do not respond to negative reinforcement. So if you tell the dolphin to jump out of the water and it doesn't, and then you say bad dolphin, or you hit it, the dolphin will never jump out of the water. So what they found is that the dolphin and the orcas only responded to positive reinforcement. So when you go and watch some of these shows, and there still may be some around, and maybe they're not having it all closed down because of,
COVID.
Because it's not good for the animals to be held in captivity. But if you see it, the dolphin jumps out of the water, what's the trainer doing? Giving it fish. What they also found, which was interesting, and they call this the Las Vegas effect, and that is that when they would give the dolphin 2 fish for jumping out of the water, what they found is that initially, the first time, the dolphin would jump really, really high and get the 2 fish. And then after that, they would just jump out of the water, not really high, and still get the same 2 fish. So the dolphin learned very quickly that the higher he went, the greater the reward was not. So like most people, when you go to work and you work 40 hours and you don't get any more or less, what do most people do? They start figuring out ways not to, if your quitting time is 4, by 3:30, everybody's getting ready to walk out the door, right? So the dolphins are the same way. So what they start doing is coming up with the bonus concept. So sometimes when the dolphin jumped out of the water, it would get 2 fish. Other times it get 3 fish, and other times it get a bucket full of fish. So the dolphin didn't know which time it was going to get 3 fish or a bucket of fish. So every jump was the best. And that's human behavior in a nutshell. We learn through repetition. We learn through reinforcement. Unfortunately, we are a little bit less like dolphins, because if we're not achieving our goal, what's going to motivate us more is the losses to be avoided than the benefits to be gained. More people will do more to not lose $1 million than people will do to get $1 million. So if you already had $1 million, you'll protect that $1 million, but you won't work as hard to go make that $1 million. That's just the way we're programmed, unfortunately. So the key to the program is over a 14-week period, identifying the goal, reinforcing the goal, and then with our own program, it's called Effective Personal Leadership. You're going to listen to audios each week, and you're going to have a lesson manual. So we're going to use reinforcement. You're going to see it, you're going to hear it, and then you're going to touch it. So how do you learn the best? By using multiple senses, right? So if you want to learn, you have to see it, smell it, taste it. So, lick the page or something. But the more senses you use, the more the information is retained. And so we use all those facets of learning to reinforce the learning. Because what happens is once that education becomes internalized, then you begin to change. And because of the way we teach the habit patterns, you begin to become, your pattern then becomes to every week look at your life and say, okay, what can I do this week to get closer to my goal? And so now after 14 weeks, you have a pattern, a success pattern that you can continue for the rest of your life. And obviously, if it works and you're making more money, you continue with the same pattern and use the same principles. And that's what the program is all about. But we're going to focus on in 2 weeks doing that definite main purpose master class. And then those of you that are interested more in learning about the EPL and the 14-week program there to get you, because on that program, basically you and I would work together. It's a group environment where we work together to establish what your goals are and then to create that plan of action. So you're going to have an exact plan that you're going to follow. That's going to produce results. All right. Any questions by anybody? We're going to get ready to wrap up. No questions? All right. So if you go to this link and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you can read it. There's a link there for what you'll get for the 19 bucks, which is part of the definite main purpose statement. There's a self-confidence formula template. There's a couple other free stuff there that you get as well. It's a bargain. I sell that for $100. I brought the price down for this event, so it's already $19. And, you know, it helps basically, you know, pay for some of my time as well. All right, everybody, I appreciate it. I'll put up the replay tomorrow for those of you that want to catch it. Let me see some, thanks for the okay. Thank you, Lori. I hope you're still here. All right, so I will see you all next week. Thank you again, everybody that showed up. Appreciate it. You have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Bert.
Thanks, Bert.
You got it, everybody.
Thank you, Bert.